Hey, you! Come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am your host, Cameron Hawkins, and with me, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing?
The cold got worse. Uh, I'm functioning today. Yesterday was gnarly, but I'm at least like in my head again. So that's good. That's an improvement. How about you? How are you doing today?
I also not like I'm not getting sick, but I was just like I think I've just a little bit exhaustion is not the word I'm looking for either. But I'm just going to use exhaustion for the term. Currently, I've been uh, doing a lot. My sleep schedule's kind of been all over the place because because I'm unemployed and I've been working on my book and things like that. So like, what is time? Um, but I'm hanging in there, and I'm glad to uh, be here because we have another review today. Um, I have gotten the chance to review Atelier Yumia. But before we get into that, we're going to go into some housekeeping. If you've been enjoying the show, please give us 5 stars on the platform of your choice, podcast platform of your choice. Go to youtube.com, find Party Chat, a JRPG podcast, and give us a subscription over there. It helps with exposure, it helps get our name out there, and we'd really, really appreciate it. And if you want to help us more on the financial side, we do have a Patreon where you can go and sub, where we have a bunch of different tiers giving a bunch of different rewards, like getting our weekly episode a day early, Campfire Catalog, our like book club podcast, which is going to be on Chrono Trigger for the inaugural episode, and a monthly Q&A and things like that. So we'd really appreciate that. And please go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and go give Kevin a sub over there as he's trying to reach 1 million subs before the end of the year. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. I had the opportunity, thanks to Koei Tecmo, to review Atelier Yumia, The Alchemist of Memories, and The Envisioned Land. This is my first Atelier game, so if you are an Atelier like a seasoned veteran of the series, apologies in advance if I get some things wrong or if I don't sound super educated because it is my first game. But it's a series that I've wanted to get into for a long time. I have like all of the physical versions of all of the games so far for Switch on my shelf. Like, it's definitely a series that I want to dig deep into. Um, but yeah, so it took me. So I have not finished the game. I want to be clear about that. Didn't get the we got the code like a little. I'll probably say about 10 days before embargo, which is tomorrow as of recording. So so it's kind of been a bit of a grind. But I have played about 25 hours, something around there. And I've been having a good time with it. I think that this is definitely a kind of specialized JRPG in the sense that if you like crafting, if you like building, if you like designing stuff, this is like the JRPG series to play. Um, it's not like a mandatory thing in most cases throughout the game, but it is definitely something that you will have to kind of go through and like the as an alchemist you synthesize things, and like if you don't like that you have to get the right materials to craft stuff, to craft the right things that you need, then you may not this may not be the JRPG for you. Um but and to be clear, like I'm not a management sim guy, and I'm not saying that this series goes as far as that or this game goes as far as that, but it is in a similar vein, and where it's an open world game, um and you will run around and you'll just see a bunch of like pickup icons across the screen. You'd like there'll just be like so many different things where you can just pick up and add to your inventory to be able to craft things later. And the crafting system or the synthesis system is very, very in depth. To a degree that like I don't, you know, I understand the basis of everything, but I don't. I would not be able to tell you like the keywords of everything of what you're doing. But basically, if you want to make an item, you have to learn the recipe first. So when there's a point where you get like a recipe table or something like that, where when you learn recipes by like just naturally gathering the right materials or whatever, you can then learn the recipe so that you can synthesize. Um, and the synthesize to synthesize, you pick what you want, and then it like gives you the options if you want to prioritize the quality of the item, the effects that the item can do, or like the bare minimum. Which the bare minimum is nice because there are some quests where it's just like, oh, deliver this item, but you're gonna lose it. So it's like, why would I use all of my resources to give you a a quality version of this thing? Um, and so like, yeah, and then basically it just kind of does it all for you. You can do it manually, but not for me, dog. I was just like, yeah, prioritize the effects or prioritize the quality. And then I'm like, cool, let's synthesize this stuff. And so like that was kind of as far as I got to the synthesizing system, because again, just like not entirely my thing. There were some times like where the game in general is like pretty easy. Like it's not. There's definitely times where I lost, like party members died and like I had to like figure things out. But there's actually where I'm at right now in the game, which I probably think is like about 2/3 through, is likely the one it is the first spot in the game where I'm like, oh, I need to like resynthesize all of my equipment and make it better. I need to like upgrade just all of my stuff in a real way that I haven't had to do before so I can beat this boss. Um and so like you can more or less I play your way by with the gear that you have a lot of the time. And then but again, like you use a lot of your equipment, and sometimes it's kind of like because there's so many materials, you're just like, do I have everything that I need? Or like, if I make this, is this going to affect the quality of this item I'm going to make? And like, I just don't have the patience to to look into that stuff personally. But it's a cool system. It's an in-depth system that I think that those that like Atelier, it's either probably going to be like the same thing, or it's going to be in like a quality of life improvement of those systems. Um, and yeah, I want to talk about combat because I think the combat is like the easiest thing I can talk about as someone who's new to the series. This seems like Atelier Ryza, I thought was still like turn-based combat. I actually went back to like look at general gameplay for the Atelier Ryza games, and they actually are more in tow with Yumia. It is real time, but the systems are look different. They're not the same. So this is a new battle system. It seems to be, uh, and it's cool. I like it. It's a little bit. It's definitely its own thing, but it also is a bit, I don't want to say rudimentary, but it just like once you learn it, it doesn't really evolve a whole lot. It's like it's more of just getting the better, crafting the better things to just make yourself do more damage in battle once you figure out all the mechanics.
Right. So it's not like there's not system mastery where you can do, fancier combos or like figure out the best way to do stuff. It's really just like, okay, you know how to hit enemies. Now make sure your equipment's up to date to like keep up with them is really what matters.
Yeah, it's yeah, so basically what it is like when you fight when you get into a fight, everyone kind of circles the enemies. And there is, they have their health bar, and then they have a shield with a number on it, and then they have like either a fist or a wand or a staff as a icon next to it. And so basically like that is like its weakness when it's like shielded. And if you are in the inner circle around it, you're doing your physical attacks. But if you move to the back row or the back ring of the circle, you're doing ranged attacks. And so once you get to 0, or like the shield to 0, they're stunned. And basically that is when you do this mechanic called friend action, where you use items. They're not like one-time use items. They are items that you like consist like that are always there. And if you have an item of the elemental weakness of that enemy, then they'll do like a strong team up attack using that item / weapon. And so the thing that is like it's cool that it exists, and there are ways to upgrade so that you can do it more per stun, because when you start it's like, oh, you can only do it one time, even if the cooldown ends before they get their shields back up. It doesn't work again. You have to, it's only the one time thing. But with the skill tree, you're able to get it to 3 times, which is nice. And so like that part is fun. And then really the only other thing that's in the combat is just like it's called precision counter, where if you dodge at the right time, your character will light up green. And then if you switch to one of the other 2 party members, because you only have 3 party members in active battle, there'll be like a little like cutscene of sorts, and transitional cutscene, and then they'll do damage to the enemy, and it automatically stuns them, which is the cool part. Is that like if you get a precision counter, it'll automatically stun them, and then you can kind of do your thing with the friend actions. But outside of that, that is basically what the systems of the combat are. When you attack, like you have a different attack for each face button, and or eventually you will. But there's no real combos. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to keep using this one until it runs out. All right, I'm going to keep using this one until it runs out. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, kind of wash, rinse, repeat what works and call it a day.
Exactly.
Now, I know there's a party member aspect to this. Like you said, you have 3 people in a party. Is there anything interesting about like differentiated between them? Like, are there times where you want to play as a certain party member, or is it just kind of like, I like this one, I'm going to play as them. They have a wash, rinse, repeat combo that everyone else does in some form. Like, that's it. Like, is there interesting differences between them?
So basically, yes. And I wish I remembered exactly like how the mechanics worked for each of them at this current point, but I do not. But basically, like, there's one guy with a shield. He kind of has like a shield gun, like it can shoot projectiles, but also is like mainly a shield. And he's supposed to be kind of like the tanky character of the team, of course. Even though I don't feel like that, like I feel like you can just basically play whoever you want and you'll have a good time. You don't need to like be that in depth. But like he has a system where like you get like these stacks. You earn these stacks in like in the front ring, and then when you go to the back ring, I believe like your abilities like do more damage from the back ring or something like that. It buffs like when you're in the back ring. And then like there's this one girl who has like these who like has throwing daggers that also like kind of plays with the ring system. So there are definitely characters that like have unique mechanics if you decide to play that character, but also like in most cases, at least for me, it got to the point where like for a lot of the game I am switching between Yumia and this other character I liked, and that was really it. The third character really I didn't really mess with them. And so like because that's the thing too, is that like while the game is like particularly easy, it also like the the progression is like a little bit slower than I would like it to be, as someone who did like take a good amount of time of like the 25 hours like free roaming and like and doing like the side quests, checking out the side quests, and like the kind of just general things that the open world has to offer. That yeah, it didn't I was just I felt like that I was able to do like one big jump for one character, and then all my other characters were just kind of like in the back end, which kind of sucked. But again, like the game is like pretty easy, so it's not like a big deal, but it is something that I also took note of, where it's just like, oh wow, you have to put like a lot of resources into like getting a character more like stronger, or getting them the gear that they need, or anything like that. Um but yeah, the combat is cool. It's like it's better than competent, but it just doesn't do anything more. Like it doesn't like it stands out as its own unique thing, but it also like I wish it just had a little bit more depth in its systems than what we got. But I think people will be fine with it. People will enjoy it. Um and so the next thing I want to talk about is the open world aspect of the game. Specifically like what you're doing, what you can do in the open world. The first thing I want to get out of the way are the side quests. You don't need to do them. They're just like they're you just don't. They're just not they're fetch quests. They're like, hey, bring me this. Hey, bring me that. And that's really all what they are. And the thing that's really frustrating about that is there's so they have this system called the pioneering effort, where like the game has I think 4 or 5 different regions, and you have to it's basically like a list of specific quests that they want you to do in that region, because your party is a research team. You're trying to learn more about the region, the empire that you're in, and things like that. And so they're like, hey, and some of them are simple. Some of them are like, hey, build this, or hey, do this. Like it's very, they're pretty simple. But to get to like the 100% pioneering effort for it also like seemingly takes a long time. Like I didn't go out of my way to try and do it, because again, I was on a short timeline. But you get a big reward for it, like a because Yumia has like a gun staff basically, where like she has her normal staff doing attacks, but it's also a gun. So like when you're traveling, when you're exploring the world, there'll be like minerals attached to walls, and you just shoot it, and then like it's like, oh, you got this mineral. And you can also shoot enemies to like stun them before the battle starts, so you start the battle stunned. And there's different like ammo types that you can use throughout the game. There's like just like the normal ammo, and then there's like a scan ammo, which allows you to kind of scan the enemy before you fight them if it's like a new enemy. I don't think it's really necessary, but because the fights are like so straightforward. But but there've been other type of ammos that you can get, but you have to do the pioneering effort stuff. And I'm like, I don't have the time to do this, because there's definitely like certain things that I've engaged with where I'm like, I feel like I need a certain ammo type that I don't have, and so I can't do this thing that like go this way that I want to explore currently. Um, and so, but like the thing is with the side quests is that you will get a side quest that wants you to build something, and you don't have the rest of like I don't have the ability to build it. And I'm like, how do I learn like literally like simple stuff too? Like, hey, I need you to build a fence so these like creatures will stop eating my crops. And I'm like, cool. And like normally when you get a quest like that, at least like um through my experience, you get you get the thing to like, hey, build this. And I didn't get it in that side quest. And it's a simple side quest, and it but I just didn't get it. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just not going to do this side quest because I'm not going to go out of my way to try and find out how I can build a fence. And the thing that sucked was like I learned through later in the game to build a different kind of fence. Doesn't count because it's not a fence. Because it was a different fence. It's like, okay, sure.
They're very particular about the specific kind of fence they want. Customer's
Yeah,
always right.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the side quests are like really like straightforward and not super interesting. And then there are these things called random quests where they will just like pop up if you just come across them. So my map is just filled to the litter with like these side quest logos with a question mark, because like the side quests have an exclamation point, the random quests have a question mark. And so because I was doing them for the longest time, and then I realized that they repeat each other.
Yeah, it's just like it's just a
They're like,
simple, repeatable thing to do. Just to
yeah,
it is so for the, I guess for these repeatable ones and for the side ones, it sounds like as far as the idea of like getting world lore or just their own stories, there's not really a whole lot to them. But is at least like
no.
the rewards good? Like, are you getting resources to be able to upgrade your gear or to like craft new things?
So that's the thing with upgrade. So that's the thing. I'm glad that you mentioned that. The answer is no. But when you explore the world, you'll find these mana lines, these blue mana lines, and it'll take you to like this kind of. It'll just like be like this giant kind of like circle, and the mana's like going outwards like a cone. And you press Y triangle. I was playing the game on Xbox, so Y, and then you basically like kind of do this little like gesture. There's like this little cutscene, and you basically get all of the mana that's like built up in this space, and then you get these things called particles, and the particles are what you need to learn recipes. And the thing is like you don't that is how you upgrade your equipment, is that you have to upgrade the recipe, and then you have to remake the item that you want a stronger version of. But the thing is that you also need to uh have the right materials, right? If you don't have the right materials to make it stronger, like in most cases it's going to be stronger just in general. But like, if you want it to be like, oh, I really don't I mean, I never like maxed out anything because it goes up to level 10, and I just like, I've gotten things to like 4 or 5 at this point. But you have to remake them, and then they will be stronger, but you will eventually have to do it again, until the you max out the recipe or you beat the game. Like, if you beat the game and you're like, okay, I'm done with this game, then you don't really need to worry about that. But yeah, it's because that's why I said like recently I had to basically remake, or I try to upgrade as much of my party's equipment through the recipe as possible, and then I remade everything so I could like have a better chance at defeating this boss. So yeah, that's how that aspect of the game goes. And then there are other things in the world. There's like these red mana lines that will take you to like this giant crystal, and then there's basically like an enemy challenge, and you'll get like a bunch of like similar rewards if you complete that. There's these shrines of prayer that exist where you basically go up to it, and then it'll show you kind of like where these like mini shrines are, and you have to kind of do like a line puzzle, like in the same aspect of like a like BioShock, right? Like where it kind of was like a first thing. You just do that. You do those kind of puzzles in a lot of different contexts, but that's kind of like the main type of puzzle in the game. But there's other puzzles too. That's kind of like a Simon Says, press these buttons in this order. Not Simon Says. What's that game I'm talking about? Where it's like blue, red, yellow, green.
Yeah, that's
Is that Simon Says?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the game versus the in-person game.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's the toy, and then there's like the old game. Yeah, exactly. But the point is, you're still trying to map. Yeah.
That is the vibe there. And so Yeah, that's like that was like the main thing that I tried to do whenever I saw one. But there's also like these kind of square blocks that are like around the world that you either have to hit or shoot, and uh they just give you skill points which go towards your skill tree. That's really all they do, and then you will find like these other crystals that like will basically allow you to fast travel. Um and but here's one thing that really irks me about this game. And this is like a very like it makes you're gonna totally be like, yeah, I get why that's stupid, but it's also like a very like small like thing because fast travel's super easy in this game, not a big deal. So in this game, you will find campsites, and you eventually will be able to craft a camping set. And it basically tells you like, hey, when you find like an open area, you can camp and you can cook food, you can communicate with your party, like you can talk to your party members, things like that. And I found the first campsite in the first region, and I tried to camp there, and you can't. You literally can't camp at campsites. And I was talking like I was talking with someone else I was reviewing the game, and I was just like, dude, have you figured out how to camp in this game? And he was behind me, so he didn't know. And then he eventually told me like, because you will end up going to these like big buildings across the map, and then you have this energy system in the game where like it more so in the context of like the like traveling the world, it prevents you from like experiencing fall damage. It like kind of protects you. It's kind of like a protective barrier lore wise. But when you get to these certain locations, there's like a platform, and then you have to use 20% of your energy to like basically like clear the mana from this area. Because like when you're in those areas, your energy is slowly being drained by the mana. Um, and so those are the places where you can camp. That's basically what I found out. I was like, those are the places that you can camp, and it's just like, oh, I mean, it makes sense, but like, because this is a big like empty area, but like, why can't I do that almost anywhere?
Right.
You know, where there's no enemies nearby. Um, and why not at a campsite? You know, because these campsites are basically just like miniature places where you can just kind of design things. Like you can like have like a an inventory case where like whenever you because like whenever you go to your your atelier, you um all of your inventory just like immediately goes into your container. And your to be clear, your atelier is where you basically do everything. That's where you synthesize. That's where you learn your recipes. But the campsites are like places where like if you think you're going to be around this area for a long time, you can build a recipe table. You can build a crafting table so that you don't have to travel back to your atelier to do so. But also like it's so easy to fast travel. I just always go to the atelier. I'm just like I make sure that like where I'm at is somewhere nearby where I can fast travel to. And then once I know that I can easily fast travel back to where I am, I just go to the atelier and do what I need to do and then double back. Um so yeah, the open world is fine. Like it's if you are not like super about the open world aspects of this game, I really don't think you have to put too much of your energy into it. Uh I don't think the side quests or the random quests are really worth doing. Um but like there's some other side stuff that like again like I like seeing the little yellow blocks, and I need to shoot it to turn it blue and I get skill points. Like, you know, that tickles a part of my brain that I like, you know. But in general it's not anything. It's pretty pretty by the books in that
Right.
sense.
One question I had is that because it is an open world setup, how does that work intertwined with like the game's critical path? Is it like somewhat nonlinear where you're just kind of exploring and going where you want, or is there a very specific like you should be going to this place next if you want to continue the main storyline, like what's happening, for the plot?
There will always be a waypoint on where you need to go for the main story. So you don't have to worry about like running into it or like I don't know where to go. Like you will always have that that path. Um, and there is if you press, I believe it was like down on the R stick, there'll be like a yellow trail that will basically be like this is how you get there because the map design is really good. I do like the map design a lot. It's very vertical and and when I was just like kind of exploring on my own, like it was one of those things where like, oh, I like just kind of randomly coming across this stuff early on. But then when I was just like, okay, I need to just like beeline to try and play as much of this game as I can story wise. I used that, and there were definitely instances on the map where I'm like, I don't know how if I would have figured out how to get here naturally, like because of like how the map is designed. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just more of just like a like there's this the design is a bit more intricate um and I had a good time just with I had a good time of just like the general exploring and being like because there's a bunch of question marks like oh where's this question mark like that type of thing, but once you kind of like realize what everything is like offered there, it's just like oh okay this is fine. You'll get some like even with there's like a bunch of chests that you'll get in the game that you'll find in the game which introduces another thing is that while you do have like your normal synthesis stuff at the atelier, you have a simple synthesis thing where you can like uh, build band-aids so that like when you're bandages when you're out of battle you can heal your party, smoke bombs so you can like flee from combat, and then your ammo and things like that. But another thing that you like have to craft quite a bit of is uh repair kits. And so the repair kits are like of different like types. There's like lumber, there's machinery, there's liquid. And when you go towards not just chests but some other things, you need certain repair kits to be able to fix it. And with when you get some of these, and there's other like chess puzzles where you have to shoot certain crystals, you have to shoot certain switches so that you can basically open the chest. And these chest rewards can like be like resources, it could be like it could be equipment. Like I've definitely pulled new equipment before I like learned the recipe to make them sometimes. And then you also get treasure trove keys, which are like these like kind of buildings that you'll come across that you need a key to get in, and then there'll be like 1 to 3 uh chests that will give you normally some pretty unique rewards. I wouldn't say it's always, but it is there. And yeah, so that's like the only other like big like kind of thing with the side content that I experience that I remember. But yeah, so that that was cool. Um, but yeah, I want to get into the story now because I I think that this is a great example of like a JRPG that like it's one of those things where you have this discussion of like, yo, if a game can't grab me in a real way in like this time, it's like I'm gonna drop off. It's not gonna be worth my time. Um, and it took me probably about 10 to 15 hours to get there, admittedly, but that is like with exploring things like that. But like I wasn't super grabbed by the narrative a whole lot for a long time. But there there were definitely certain moments and certain revelations about characters and just like what the lore of this world is, and I was like, this is really cool. Like I really like this. Um so like, and I don't know if goes across all the Atelier games, but in this game, alchemy is kind of taboo. It's not seen positively. Um and And so basically, like, there are certain aspects of like alchemy that is used in this world that affected these characters in negative ways that like a lot of the kind of main or overarching story is just like, hey, is alchemy good or is alchemy evil? Like, is it, you know, what how do we perceive alchemy? And it kind of like allows the, you know, like the characters go on their own journeys and their own like self-reflections and of it, but like you can also just kind of like, as a player, you can be like, dang, like this is like a very like nuanced subject, and you can kind of like come to your own conclusions as well. And because I, you know, I don't want to get into story spoilers, but like there were some really cool revelations in the regards to alchemy in this world that I'm like, this is sick. Like I want to learn more about this. I just wish that it was like, again, just trails, man. But like the way that like you don't really learn any of that outside of the main story. It's all like in the main plot. And so like I just wish that they had elements of like that stuff in a real way outside of it, to make to make the world feel a little bit more interesting in that aspect. But again, like once you like kind of come to some of these revelations with some of these characters, it's just like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I'm listening. Like, and then you get to like other revelations about other characters, and you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy, and like that's really cool. And I really want to like see where the story is going. It took a while. It took longer than I would like, for sure. But like, and I think that if I wasn't reviewing this game, I think I would have still stuck with it. But but if I didn't for some reason, like I'm just glad I did. I'm just glad I did. You know, that I had a reason to see it through, because like it was really cool. It's really cool, and it makes me more curious about not just like the rest of this game and like how it finishes up, but also just like the other Atelier games. Like is like, what is alchemy seen like in that war, or like in that universe or version of Atelier? Because I know that like in previous games, a big kind of thing about it is that you actually had like a timer, and you basically had to like complete all these objectives before the days went out, so that you can like become an alchemist, or like I think you're like an alchemist in training, or like, so you're still able to do alchemy, but you're not like a fully fledged alchemist. I could be completely wrong here. Sorry to the Atelier fans, but like that is not present in this game. And so I'm curious of like, oh, is this in a world where like alchemy is more acceptable? There's a lot more alchemists, like, because this seems like a thing that, like, just like knowing kind of what the base pitch is there, like that sounds to me like a world that is more like, oh, there's alchemists everywhere. Like, are you at a school? Are you like, well, what's the vibe there? Um, and so yeah, I really like this so far. I do think that like this is a solid, like, for at least for me, from my ignorance, like this is a totally good first Atelier game to jump into if you've never played the series before. Uh, you know, because I know that with Ryza, it like evolved a bit, like with the gameplay and like the combat. Sophie 2, I know, which was also a more recent game, that actually is still turn based, but so they it seems like they're still offering that kind of experience. But if you are looking for something, if you want to get into this series and you haven't given it a shot yet, I think Atelier Yumia is a solid entry to do that. I don't know if it's like the best Atelier game ever. I don't know how it stacks up compared to like Ryza and Ryza 2. I know are highly spoken about. But I really like, I enjoyed my time with this game. You know, it doesn't do anything particularly outstanding, but it is still a good game. Like, it's a solid, like, you know, 8 out of 10 game, like, you know, 7.5 maybe, like around there. Where like, you know, I enjoyed my time with it. I think that people should give it a shot if they want to get into the Atelier games. And yeah. I don't know if you have any last questions for me, Kev.
I think the only other one that I would want to ask, and I touched on this a little bit mechanically, but now I'm also interested in it like plot wise. How is the party roster? Like just as far as like, party, like I know you were talking about how like you can do the camping and so characters can interact a little bit there. Just like how are the vibes of the party itself?
Well, one thing that's worth noting is that there's no English VA. That is a normal thing in the Atelier games. There's no English voiceover. It's all Japanese. Um, I like the vibes. It's a little tropey, but it's also like it's tropey, but it also like I think recognizes those tropes and uses it to benefit the character of those stories.
It's kind of
Um,
self-aware about it. It's not just like feeding into the tropes for the sake of it. Yeah.
yeah, like there's this like one guy who is very edgy and has a scythe for a weapon and sunglasses and sharp shark teeth. Um, and he is like this, he is the oh, I don't care about you guys. You're not my friends. But you're secretly my friends. Like, you know what I mean? That's a little bit more like on the nose. But then there's like one character that she is the fan service voluptuous woman of the party. But again, like her backstory is super interesting and super fascinating, and I think she's like the most interesting character of the game so far. And I really enjoy her. Like, yes, like she's pretty to like she's nice to look at, but like she has like a story that like makes it that like and again it kind of plays onto those tropes a bit that I really enjoy. And so yeah, the party's good. Like I wouldn't say that it's amazing, but they're good. Like I like the vibe. I think my main issue is on top of that is that like there are these like connection side quests um for each of these party members. Um but I just like don't feel like, again, similar to like all the other stuff in the world, I just don't feel like that they really add to the character. Like, oh, I feel like notably stronger about this character after doing this side quest like of theirs. I don't really feel that in most cases. So yeah, but again, they're cool. Like assuming that there's an Atelier Yumia too, and they all come back, I'm like, that's cool. But yeah, this is like one of the more kind of like tropey JRPGs, which I don't mind a tropey JRPG. But it's just kind of, but it's also kind of like a know what you're getting into type situation. Um, and I enjoyed it. I think that like if you were if you want to get into this series, this is a solid place to start. But it definitely like there are definitely things about it that like I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. I do not care about I don't care about the crafting. I don't care about the atelier decorating. Like I don't. I picked like
Sure.
I have the necessary stuff in there, and then I'm out. Like I don't,
Yeah.
but some people like they eat that shit up, and like that's awesome.
And you were able to not avoid, I guess, but like you're able to engage with that stuff on a minimum level if you just want to get to like the meat of like story and gameplay. If you're
100%.
just not into it, okay, well that's good to know. If like that's not your thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like if you were like, oh, this Atelier game looks really cool, but I don't really like this crafting stuff that I'm seeing, just know that like you don't have to do it a whole lot. And when you do have to do it, they have systems in place to simplify it for those that do not want to get into the nitty gritty of it all.
Good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody, that is also it is worth noting, because I mentioned it to you when I was playing it. One of the villains is voiced by Kuroda, who's the voice of Kazuma Kiryu. And because like it was so funny because like there's just like this cutscene.
Oh, his voice is so
And
iconic. Like you just know it when you hear it.
no, oh yeah. I was, I think one of my friends was like, my roommates was talking to me, and he started, and like the cutscene started playing, and his voice happened, and he was like in mid conversation, and I literally was just like, "Shut up!" And I was like listening. I leaned forward and I'm like, is that Kiryu? Is that Kuroda? And
Magical.
that was a really funny moment when I played through that game, because like, you know, like obviously he does other voice work, but you just like know him so distinctually as Kiryu that like when you hear him as a different character, you're just like, you're not even like that's Kuroda, you're like that's Kiryu.
Yeah, I mean that's half my interest in Rusty Rabbit. So like,
Oh yeah, no, again, like we're at SGF and this, I heard the trailer and I'm like, that's Kiryu, and then they just laughed. But yeah, so Atelier, good game. I had a good time with it. It makes me more interested to play the other Atelier games once I finish Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and some other some other big JRPG franchises. But yeah, had a good time with it. I recommend it. And again, thank you to Koei Tecmo for sending us a code to review it. But that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our review of Atelier Yumia. And the game comes out, I believe, on the 21st, March 21st. I'm going to double check that right now.
yes, 21st.
Yes, March 21st, and it's going to be on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Oh, and apparently PS4 as well.
Yep. PS4,
And
Xbox
Switch.
One, and Switch. Yep, just
Wow.
everything,
Oh, wow.
everything.
I thought this was like going to be the big one where they like kind of focus on the bigger consoles, but yeah, so it's basically on everything, everybody. So if you want to check it out, I recommend it. But until next time, I'm Cameron, that's Kevin, and we'll see you later.
Later.